I recently uploaded a video looking at Cactus Jack and the Lost in Cleveland vignettes that aired on WCW television during 1993. I've also looked at the other unintentionally hilarious off-site video shoots that WCW produced around this same time period, Spin the Wheel Make the Deal and Beach Blast in previous videos, so I thought I might as well look at Vader's White Castle of Fear today. Another mini-movie produced by WCW and another piece of wrestling media that's become quite infamous as the years went on. Now, this one maybe isn't as bad as the others. For me personally, nothing will ever top the Beach Blast mini-movie, but it can be argued that the White Castle of Fear actually led to the best match of the bunch, Sting vs Vader at SuperBrawl 3. So we're going to take a look at the short film along with the entire pay-per-view match in today's video. Big Van Vader had his first WCW match in 1990, but up until around mid-1992, Vader also worked in Japan. In 92, after starting his full-time run with World Championship Wrestling, Vader became the company's biggest bad guy when he began a storied rivalry with Sting, the company's biggest babyface. I talked in my previous video about how Cactus Jack and Vader were seemingly made for each other in terms of their rivalry, but the same could also be said about Sting and Vader. Sting was the action figure that came to life. He had an incredible amount of charisma and fans just gravitated towards him. And then there was Vader, a big old bully who intimidated his opponents with his size and strength. Not only that, but Vader was extremely hard-hitting when it came to his matches. The guy was scary inside the ring. You just need to look at a picture of Sting and Vader inside the ring at the same time and the story tells itself. It's all about the hero overcoming the odds. Vader got paired up with the legendary Harley Race, and this was when Vader became unstoppable. And in April of 1992, Big Van Vader would face Sting in a series of house show matches for the WCW Championship. During the final match in the Omni in Atlanta, Vader legitimately injured Sting. Jim Ross announced that Sting had suffered broken ribs and a bruised sternum, and while it was obviously a bad time to be the Stinger, the injury went a long way in legitimizing the threat of Vader. If he could do this to the Stinger, then maybe he was truly unstoppable. Vader got a rematch against Sting a few months down the road at the 1992 Great American Bash, and this is definitely a match that you should go out of your way to see. The fans in attendance go absolutely crazy as Sting does all he can to stop Vader, but in the end it wasn't enough. Vader nails his opponent with a powerbomb and Vader becomes the new heavyweight champion. Vader would drop the title to Ron Simmons in one of the most emotional matches you'll ever see in wrestling in August of 1992, but he'd regain the title towards the end of the year. Before claiming the title back though, Vader faced Sting at Starrcade 1992. Both men competed in the King of Cable tournament, and the finals came down to Sting versus Vader. There's a lot going on in Starrcade 1992, including the Lethal Lottery Tag Tournament, an NWA World Heavyweight Championship match, a WCW World Heavyweight Championship match, and also the Battle Bowl that ends the show. But even with all this going on and how messy the pay-per-view is, Sting vs Vader is definitely a highlight. The Stinger was able to get a little revenge here in yet another great matchup. The end of the match saw Sting grabbing Vader in mid-air to perform a power slam, and like always, the crowd goes nuts when Sting picks up the victory. As previously mentioned, Vader would reclaim the WCW title shortly after Starrcade though, and seeing as Sting defeated Vader at the big pay-per-view, it made sense that the Icon would be the first in line for a WCW title shot. WCW ran a series of interviews on their Saturday night program titled WCW Up Close, and on the January 9th episode, Vader was interviewed by Tony Schiavone. Big Van Vader says that he knows Sting wants the WCW Championship, but Vader also wants something from the Stinger. He wants revenge for Starrcade 92. The following week on WCW Saturday Night, a video aired where Vader invited Sting to the White Castle of Fear. With snow blowing on his face, Vader says he and Sting have a date with Destiny at SuperBrawl 3, but before that happens, Vader invites his opponent to a party at his own castle. Vader says he knows Sting enjoys having a good time and he knows Sting likes a challenge, so now we had to wait and see if Sting would accept.
Come to the White Castle of Fear and play Vader's game!
It left fans with a lot of questions, the big one being just what on earth is this White Castle that Vader is talking about? What we did know though is that Sting vs Vader was happening again at SuperBrawl 3, and judging by their previous matches, this was going to be good. It was announced shortly afterwards that Sting vs Vader would be some sort of special match, but the match type wasn't revealed straight away. We'll get to that soon. After Vader sent out his invitation, he completely destroyed poor job guy Tim Dixon, so bad that Dixon had to get carried out of the ring. The following week, Sting was featured on Up Close, and the Icon talked about his previous matches with Vader and the strategies he tried to implement to overcome the big man. Tony Schiavone brings up the invitation Sting received for the White Castle of Fear, and Sting says he has no idea what this thing is. The Icon talks about Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal, where he walked into the Devil's Den with Jake the Snake Roberts, and in the end, Roberts was unable to defeat the Stinger. So this White Castle of Fear doesn't intimidate Sting. Sting doesn't care about walking into enemy territory. He only cares about getting his hands on Big Van Vader. So yes, Sting accepts the invitation, and because he mentioned the Jake Roberts stuff from Halloween Havoc 92, fans had a good idea that this was going to be another weird WCW mini movie. The White Castle of Fear mini-movie aired on the 30th of January 1993 episode of WCW Saturday Night, and I don't know, I'd be really surprised if WCW thought people would actually take this seriously. It's impossible to watch The White Castle of Fear without laughing or at least rolling your eyes. But one thing is for sure, it'll make you question what on earth WCW was thinking at the time. We see Sting getting out of his car and jumping into a helicopter, but before we go any further, I need to point out the music that plays at the start. It sounds like someone is having an absolute fit with a synthesizer. Sting jumps into the helicopter, bringing nothing but his sweet outfit and his invitation. Sting flies over some snowy mountains while hearing Vader's voice. And we hear Sting's internal monologue. He wonders what this is all about, and he wonders what's going to happen when he reaches his destination.
Vader challenged me to a game?
Sting then shows us the formal invitation that he received from Vader. Come to a pre-SuperBrawl party at my White Castle of Fear. The helicopter lands at some sort of cave. It definitely doesn't look like a castle, and inside we see a table has been laid out with food, and Vader's entrance gear sits as the table's centerpiece. Women who must have been extremely cold are placed around the dining area, and we see Cheatham. This guy was also featured in the Halloween Havoc 1992 mini-movie, and he'd also play a role in the Beach Blast movie. Sting shows up and the ladies begin chomping on apples and seductively drinking while saying, "He's here." We expect an all-out attack, but Sting looks happy to see the ladies, and they too looked pleased to see the Icon. Maybe this wasn't a bad idea after all. Vader is seen shadowboxing in a different area, and Harley Race tells the big man that Sting just arrived. And back in the dining room, Cheatham tells Sting to play the game.
Sting's here! Play the game!
You again.
Play the game!
Sting looks at the camera and he says there's something very familiar about all this as Vader breaks a mirror by screaming Sting's name. It's starting to get very confusing. Cheatham announces that Vader has arrived.
Who's the man?
You're the man!
Sting says the White Castle of Fear reminds him of Vader's personality. It's cold. Harley Race thought that this line was absolutely brilliant.
Very funny, Sting.
And then Harley says that Sting is here to accept the challenge of Vader and it's time for Sting to play the game. Sting says fine, what is this game that Harley speaks of? And Vader doesn't like questions too much, so he clears the dining table before asking Sting if he knows what a strap match is. Sting and Vader are going to have a Vader-style strap match right here in the White Castle of Fear. Vader puts one end of the strap around his wrist and Sting does the same. We have a tug of war going on over a flaming table. It's just, it's fucking ridiculous, isn't it? Have a look at how it ends.
Vader, Vader, Vader.
So Sting gets pulled into the fire, but the strap burns in the middle, and this causes a giant explosion. So, who won? Is Sting okay? Has Harley Race stopped laughing? Tune in to SuperBrawl 3 to find out. On the same episode of WCW Saturday Night, it's confirmed that Sting vs Vader will be a traditional strap match at SuperBrawl, and the show ends with a tag team match pitting Vader and Barry Windham against Sting and Dustin Rhodes. So I guess Sting escaped the White Castle of Fear, thank God for that. WCW Saturday Night ended with Sting getting his back whipped by Vader. Other WCW superstars had to run down to the ring to help out the icon. On the 20th of February episode of Saturday Night, Big Van Vader went on a rampage with his leather strap, whipping absolutely anyone that moved. The thing about the White Castle of Fear mini movie is that it kinda overshadows the strap match at SuperBrawl. You go from one extreme to the next here. The White Castle of Fear is what many people dislike about WCW in 1993, but then the match itself is something people love about this era of World Championship Wrestling. The strap match at SuperBrawl is absolutely fantastic, and it's just a shame that the White Castle of Fear seems to get more attention than the match itself. But let's try to fix that right here by taking a look at Big Van Vader vs Sting at SuperBrawl 3, one of the best WCW matches of the year, and personally, my favourite Vader vs Sting match of their entire series. The rules are simple, both men will be tied together with a leather strap, and the winner has to consecutively touch all 4 ring posts or top turnbuckles. A message comes up on the screen to say that this match is not sanctioned by WCW, so you know you're in for a good time here as the men get the strap wrapped around their wrists. Vader tries to throw Sting off his game by whipping the strap around, but the Stinger looks focused, and the big man shows he has a strength advantage here by pulling the strap and tossing Sting across the ring. The Stinger wants to prove he's strong enough to take on Vader, so the two men begin a tug of war, but it's no use. The same thing happens again, and so Sting will need to rethink his strategy. Vader toys with Sting by pulling the icon in for a stare down, and then the WCW champion almost takes his opponent's head off with a clothesline. This looks like Vader's match, and Sting is having a tough time getting started. Vader drives his elbow into the Stinger and a few whips from the strap follows. Vader then hits a second rope splash that almost crushes Sting's head, and the champion then takes a little time to play up to the audience. Behind Vader's back, Sting manages to get the strap in between Vader's legs, and the big man finds himself in a precarious position. Sting takes advantage by repeatedly pulling the strap back, and Vader ends up going down after a few strikes. Sting then takes to the skies by performing a diving clothesline and 2 big splashes from the top rope. And Sting then returns the favour from earlier by whipping Vader across the back. Harley Race jumps up on the apron and he too gets whipped. Vader rolls to the outside, and I'm pretty sure that Harley is blading Vader at this point. You can see him scrambling to grab something, and he conceals whatever is in his hand when the cameraman gets too close. Vader gets rammed into the ring post and the champion is now a bloody mess. His back has been ripped up badly and Sting tries to end the match. When going for the third ring post, Vader launches Sting into the guardrail, but when the competitors get back inside the ropes, Sting hits a Samoan drop. The Icon gets his momentum halted for a moment when Vader goes for the powerbomb, but Sting reverses before going back up to the top rope. Sting tries another diving splash, but this time he misses his target. It's pretty certain that by this point of the match, there wasn't a single person in the Asheville Civic Centre that was thinking about the White Castle of Fear video. This one was turning into an absolute war. Vader takes control again with a big splash followed by some mounted punches. The big man then gives Sting a taste of his own medicine with a Samoan drop. The destruction of Sting continues with a Vader bomb and Harley Race begins an early victory celebration. There's no way Sting is recovering from this absolute beating. Vader begins whipping Sting again, and for the first time in this match, it looks like Sting is actually backing off while pleading with Vader to stop. But that isn't going to happen. Vader continues whipping Sting before delivering a Samoan drop from the middle rope. The impact here was incredible. Feeling that he has the match won, Vader begins touching the turnbuckles. He manages to drag Sting to 2 turnbuckles before the challenger breaks it up with a kick to the head. Another Vader bomb attempt comes next and Sting gets out of the way, but Vader still gets back to his feet before Sting and he decides to try another aerial attack. This was a mistake. Sting pulls Vader while the big man was on the top turnbuckle and Vader ends up getting thrown across the ring. Both men are now completely spent. They use all their energy to try to trade blows on the floor, but Vader again manages to get to his feet before Sting. After delivering a superplex, Vader again tries to win the match, but he only manages to hit 3 turnbuckle pads before Sting interrupts. This just pisses the WCW champion off. Vader brings Sting to the corner and he begins laying in the punches and open hand slaps. Sting begins to bleed at this point and all hope is seemingly lost. But then Sting manages to pull off a rolling kick when Vader pulls the strap. This might be Sting's last chance. The Icon lays in some back elbows before hitting a German suplex on Vader. Sting then follows up with a DDT, and then Vader is brought to the corner where Sting goes absolutely crazy with a series of right hands. Vader gets the side of his head busted open and Sting decides this is it. This is his chance to end the match. Nick Patrick takes a dramatic bump as Sting carries Vader to turnbuckle 1. Sting then manages to hit turnbuckles 2 and 3, but when it comes to the last turnbuckle, the Stinger trips over the referee. This really did turn out to be Sting's last chance. Vader hits a sit-down splash before using the straps to tie Sting's legs. Vader hits turnbuckles 1, 2 and 3. In a turnbuckle 4, Sting kicks Vader away, but the big man falls back and he hits the final turnbuckle. Vader retains the WCW Heavyweight Championship. If there's one nitpick about this match, it's the fact that physical contact from your opponent beforehand led to a reset, but it seemingly didn't matter at the finish. Maybe Nick Patrick was still groggy or something, who knows. Still, what a fantastic matchup. Sting attacks Vader with the strap afterwards, but the decision stands. Vader defeats Sting at SuperBrawl 3. From the poorly received comedy gold that was the White Castle of Fear to the extremely entertaining strap match at SuperBrawl, this Sting vs Vader build-up and main event really does highlight the good and bad from this era of World Championship Wrestling. When it came to the action in the ring, WCW could be excellent, but when it came to the drama and storylines that helped to bring people to the matches or make people tune in on TV, there was some real glaring issues. You can have a laugh while watching the mini movie, but the real laughs come when you realise WCW wasn't trying to produce comedy here. You gotta respect the company trying new things, but White Castle of Fear, and indeed the other WCW mini movies, were not what loyal fans of WCW wanted to see. They absolutely hated this stuff. It was the WWF who was supposed to do this corny entertainment stuff, and here was WCW doing even worse than the World Wrestling Federation. There was a happy ending though. Sting maybe didn't win the WCW title at SuperBrawl, but he and Vader had an absolute barn burner. A match that, at the time, helped WCW fans forget about the White Castle vignette. It's just a bit of a shame that the White Castle video seems to get more recognition nowadays when compared to the actual matchup. As for Sting and Vader, well, the Stinger defeated Vader at a UK house show for the WCW Championship, but Vader regained the title days later. The rivalry would continue into Beach Blast 1993, where Sting and Davey Boy Smith defeated Vader and Sid Vicious, and after Beach Blast, Vader would resume his feud with Cactus Jack, while Sting worked against multiple heels including Sid and Ravishing Rick Rude. The following year, at Slamboree 1994, Sting defeated Vader in a one-on-one match to become the WCW World International Champion. And in order to merge the world title with the international title, Ric Flair defeated Sting at the 27th Clash of the Champions show in Charleston, South Carolina. As with most things on this channel that get glossed over, I hope to cover all this in more detail with future uploads. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.